Hello. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you. That's it. Oh my gosh. All right. So what do you want to talk about?
Everything.
Thank you for all being here. Really. It means so much. And we're going to share a very interesting journey together. 35 years. It's been 35 years. It's hard to believe. Elvis left us in 1977, and for a lot of us, he is still with us. And over the years, I've written personally 2 books. I've appeared on television, been on the radio, spoken to fans around the world. And I have a lot of very interesting stories and anecdotes to tell. And I'll share some of those with you today. But my purpose is to bring you into the inner dimension of Elvis's life. I want you to listen in rooms upstairs, private rooms at Graceland, at the studio, in Las Vegas, wherever we were. Because over the years, Elvis and I spoke every day, for hours sometimes, about the most intimate aspects of his life, for why he was, what happened when he became Elvis Presley, and what all that meant to him. This is my mission. And Elvis asked me to tell you. He empowered me. And that's why I am so passionate about what we're doing here today and what I've been doing for many years. One afternoon, it was in April 25th, which is a very significant day in Elvis's life. It was his mother's birthday. We were in Detroit, Michigan, at the Hilton Hotel. That night, Elvis is going to appear in concert. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon, and Elvis and I were in his bedroom on the floor. And we were looking at these 2 open trunks of books. Because wherever we went, Elvis had his books. Portable library. And over the years, they just grew. At any rate, Elvis picked up a book and looked at it kind of wistfully and put it down, and he goes like this to me. We stand up to go into the other room, and he just stops. And he puts one hand on my shoulder, and the other hand he points outside. He said, "They know Elvis Presley, all right," he said. "They know Elvis. They don't know me. They don't know me. They know Elvis the image, but there's something else going on inside of me, and the world needs to know, and I need to know that you're with me." And I said, "Yeah, of course I am, of course." He said, "Look, this book is coming out on me. Stories are going to be floating around, and you know as well as I do that a half-truth could be a lie, could be a distortion. People don't know about the books I read. They don't know that I'm a spiritual person. I would never ask anyone else but you. I trust you, and I want you to tell the world the truth about who I really am. Because if they don't understand, if you don't do this, they'll never get me. I'm counting on you to do this." We hugged on it. That was my bond. That's it, and that's what I've been doing. That's what I'm doing here. Now for me, it started in California. I grew up in West Hollywood, went to Fairfax High School. I was in a group, a little club we had called the Pals. And there were 6 of us: Christian Dome, Chuck Letterman, Stan Bly, Art Neuberger, and Dick Perkins, and me. If you saw Happy Days and Fonzie, 6 of us, that's what we looked like. I can't tell you how many times a day I was doing this. And the ducktail and the hair and those sideburns and tight peggers and, you know. So one afternoon at school, it was lunchtime, and Stan ran up and said, "Hey, you're not going to believe it. Elvis is coming to town." Oh my God. When he said that, I just like, oh, this is it. This is it. But we figured, hey, we're going to get in. We have to see Elvis. That was it. We go to the Pan Pacific Auditorium the day of the concert. We never saw anything like this. I mean, we all take this for granted, rock concerts, right? Thousands of kids teeming in from everywhere. It was so exciting. And I saw some people I knew from school. Hey, you got an extra ticket? Hey, can I go in with you? Go in with you. We were so stupid. We were kids, right? So we walked to the end of the building and we tried to pry open the door. Nothing. We went to the back of the building. Someone wanted to break a window. I mean, just about everyone was in. There was a few stragglers, you know, like us. So we had one other shot. We walked to the side of the building and I said, "Look, there he is. There's Elvis." And there was Elvis standing there. With about 3 or 4 guys in front of him, gold jacket. He was about maybe 15 yards away. I said, "Come on, you guys, let's go meet Elvis." They froze. I saw the look on their faces. And I said, "Well, I'm going." I ran up to Elvis, and at that time I was about maybe this tall. And Elvis, I could see Elvis looking at me because one of the guys nudged Elvis, like, "This guy is right in here." And Elvis looks, and I ran up to him. And he looks at me, and "Hi, Elvis. My name is Larry Geller." And he puts his hand out. He said, "Hi, I'm Elvis Presley." And I'm looking at that face. I'm looking at his hair and his eyes and his sideburn, his lip. Just from where I was sitting, it was like, this guy's from outer space. This isn't even real, but it's real, right? But the minute he said, "Hi, I'm Elvis Presley, nice to meet you," at that very moment, one of the guys said, "Elvis, they want you, you're on." He looked and he kind of shrugged. And this energy was just burning in him. I could see it. Whew, I could feel it. He says to me, "Well, you heard, kid," he called me kid, "got to go, talk to you some other time." And he walked off. Oh man. I mean, you can imagine, right? All my friends came over. Everyone wanted to shake my hand now. A couple of girls came over. I thought, oh, this is so cool. It's so cool, man, you know. About a year later, I took a walk one evening on that very street where the Pan Pacific Auditorium is. And I see a big stained glass window and a door. And in those days, that was weird. And there was an Egyptian ankh. And I thought, wow. So I walked in. When I walked in, I didn't know if it was a beauty salon or a barber shop. I couldn't tell. There were shampoo bowls, and there was a guy in a small ladder hanging plants, and it was all wooden, very rustic. I introduced myself, and he explained to me, he said, "I'm opening up the very first salon for men in America. Doesn't exist." He said, "What you should do is when you get your license, because you probably will, join forces with me. We'll start a new art form, and we're pioneers. And this is going to be something else." I did. We opened our doors, and right off the bat, Hollywood's who's who: Frank Sinatra, Marlon Brando, Paul Newman, Rock Hudson, Steve McQueen. I was doing Roy Orbison's hair, Henry Fonda, Peter Sellers, one of my clients. I mean, and I was 20 years old. And this was really something else. So one afternoon in April of 1964, My phone rang, and I'm doing someone's hair. And on the other line was this southern drawl. And this fellow by the name of Alan Fortas, who used to work, the late Alan Fortas, who used to work for Elvis, said, Larry, I'm sitting here with Elvis Presley, and he would like you to come up to the house to fix his hair. I wasn't even sure if I heard correctly. And as I was saying this, the receptionist said something like, Peter Sellers wants you. He wants you to come up to the house. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is something. I said, yes, I would. Well, you know, naturally, right? So I drove up to the house in Bel Air, in Perugia Way. And I knew what Elvis's house was right off the bat. Why? There were tons of fans in the front. Young people, old people. The gates opened up and people are screaming, tell Elvis I'm here, you know, and all the, you know, well, of course. I walk in. And Elvis walks up to me. And I'm 6'2". Elvis is about 5'11 and a half. He probably looks 6'2" to everyone, but he was 5'11 and a half, which is still a very tall guy. He walks up to me, he puts his hand out, he says, hi, I'm Elvis Presley. And he looked at me, and I thought, no. And I put my hand out. I said, hi, Elvis, I'm Larry Geller, great to meet you. I'm having this flashback of this kid, hi, Elvis. You know? And he had that same inner glow. It was a moment. It was a moment. He said, come on, man, we'll go into my bathroom. You fix my hair. We'll talk. Great. Walk into the bathroom. I'm expecting to see a salon chair, light bulbs around, you know, nothing of the kind. Just, it was a big bathroom, but plain. It was a little basin. And I said, come on, we'll do it right here. So I put a towel on. I'm trying to rinse the hair out, you know, the shampoo out of his hair, and all of a sudden I'm almost through, and Elvis rears his head up and he goes like this, and the water's flying, and it's hitting me, and he's like, water's all over. And he looks at me with that $1 million Elvis smile. And you all know what I'm talking about. And he says to me, hey man, what the hell? At least it's clean. In that very instance, that moment, I knew who Elvis was as a human being. A lot of celebrities want you to know who they are. That ego is just flaming. Elvis was a regular guy. He didn't have those ego filters. And I thought there was a purity in this man. And I loved it. I felt at ease immediately. It didn't matter if I was the gardener or the President of the United States. He treated everyone as a human being. And that was Elvis. We sit down in front of a long marble ledge, mirror. He's explaining to me, he's in the middle of this movie with Barbara Stanwyck called Roustabout. And he says to me, you know, you can't cut too much off, Larry. These scenes have got to match. Elvis, I said, leave the driving to me. Don't worry, I know exactly what to do. He said, okay. Now, I didn't know it then, but in a certain sense, you couldn't shut Elvis up. He loved to talk. He loved to. Great storyteller, a very inquisitive mind. Bright. He was so bright and had an innate awareness about him. But he didn't say anything. And I'm doing his hair and looking at him in the mirror, and I can see his eyes following every move. He's just intent. And I figured, look, if he wants to engage in a conversation, wonderful, I'm here. If not, sure spaced, I'm here to do a job, great. I sprayed his hair. I said, so what do you think, Elvis? What do you think? He says, oh, beautiful, man, great, great. He just dismissed it, turned around, and he points at me. Who are you? Who are you, Larry? What are you really all about, man? What are you really into? I was stunned. That was so straightforward, right? I mean, and as I'm telling you this, I can remember exactly what my thoughts were. And they raced by like that. You could tell him the truth of what you're into. He might think you're a Hollywood nut, or he'll appreciate it. And I had to speak the truth. I said, Elvis, you know I work on celebrities. You know all about our salon. But there's something more important to me than doing hair in my vocation in life. And that is, I'm searching for truth, for God, for the purpose of life. That's what I'm really all about. I read spiritual books and religious books about the great religions of the world, and I'm into meditation, and I pray. I know you're Elvis Presley. I know you're the biggest star in the world. This probably sounds corny to you. He says, whoa, wait a minute, man. Wait a minute, he said. You have no idea how I need to hear what you have to say, because what you're talking about is what I think about when I go to bed at night. My whole life. I've no one to talk to about this. And please keep on talking. So I told Elvis, I said, you know, there's a book that really got me started. And it's a fantastic book called The Impersonal Life. It talks about the creation, and it's a very metaphysical book, and it talks about the voice within. He said, what are you talking about? What voice within? I said, well, we all have an inner voice. Some people call it intuition, call it what you want. And I said, when I was a little boy, I was in kindergarten, and I would hear this voice talk to me and tell me things from right from wrong, and I thought it was my father talking to me. And I thought, hey, that's how fathers talk to their children. And I said, man, I had that voice when I was a kid. I thought it was my twin brother. I said, Elvis, look, the great questions of life. Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Do we really have souls? Is there life after death? Or is life just a giant, vast cauldron of molecules and atoms bubbling over that over billions and billions of years evolved to this? Or is there a God? Is there a divine plan? And I said, hey man, I could never buy into that other one. I've always believed, I was brought up in the church. He said, but you know, something very interesting. Someone told me, I don't know who it was, he said, but you know those ships, those little ships, they get them into the bottle, and nobody knows how they got in there and how do you get them out? But I always heard that's what man is, that we're stuck in that. When he said that to me, I'm thinking, oh, okay, he's saying a mouthful. He's telling me about himself in a very deep way, whether he even realizes it or not. Elvis said to me, I've always felt this unseen hand ever since I was a little boy, guiding my life, bringing me to where I am now. He said, there's got to be a reason. And like you say, there's no such thing as coincidence. And he went like this. He went, there's got to be a reason why I was plucked out of all the millions and millions of lives to be Elvis. There's got to be a reason. He said, Larry, you have no idea where I came from. Man, I'm telling you, I came from poverty like you would not believe. And Elvis started to tell me about the 2-room shack that his father built in Tupelo. 2 rooms. He said, man, people take everything for granted. We didn't have light bulbs, phones, electricity. We didn't know from electricity in our house. I realized where he came from. And he's telling me this, and tears are streaming down his cheeks. So I'm thinking, he doesn't know me, and he's opening up, and he's telling me these what's going on here? I knew something special was happening, and this thing was just unfolding. Now I'm with him about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was a remarkable conversation that we're having, that Elvis and I were having, and he said to me, my mom said to me, honey, don't you ever forget where you came from. Don't you ever forget. And when I came on the scene, she said to me, honey, Elvis, people are going to want to use you. Don't you ever forget. He said, when I first came out to Hollywood, I went to these Hollywood parties, and these bald guys with cigars would put their arm around me and call me baby. He said, man, I hated that stuff. I cringed. When I finish making a movie, I get the hell out of Hollywood. It's like one big movie set, Tinseltown. I get back to Memphis. I looked at my watch because I realized I must have been here maybe 3, I don't even know how long I've been here. I look at my watch. Elvis, I got to get back. They're waiting for me. Look, if you want me to come back sometime, I'll do your hair again. I'll bring you some books. We can talk, whatever you want, but I got to get going. He said, I got a better idea. Go back and tell me you quit and you work for me full time. What do you think? You be at the studio, at Paramount Studios. You know where it is, don't you? I said, oh yeah, sure. Be there tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. Your name would be at the gate. And bring me some of those books. I was at Paramount Studios at 8 o'clock. As I drive in, I see Elvis coming in right behind me, and a few other cars, and all of a sudden we walk into the great dressing room. Elvis comes in, sits down, and Elvis in those days was like kinetic energy, moving. He just, yeah, get that for me over there. Hey, I need some water. Can I get some water? And I brought him some books, and the first book I gave him was a book called The Impersonal Life. And since Elvis died, this book is so synonymous with Elvis that the publishers with Graceland put this copy out. Elvis, one time I bought 100 of these for him. And at the end, after a movie, he handed it to everyone who worked on the movie. And you have to understand, this is 1964. This is the cusp of the cultural revolution of the 60s. These subjects, esoteric, metaphysical, God, the soul, no one spoke about these things. And turn on TV and Oprah's talking about it. I mean, you go to the book, this is what it's all about, and it's getting bigger and bigger today. Then it's verboten. People would think you're really weird if you, even some people today perhaps, but then, without a doubt. So when Elvis at the studio would give these out, he would smile at me like, hey, they need this. They need this. He would give this to people. You got to read this. You've got to. Well, that was the beginning for me. And we left at the end of that first day. We walked outside, and I looked at Elvis's car. It was a Rolls Royce. And Elvis said to me, you ever been in a Rolls? I said, no, I haven't. He said, take the keys. Go for a ride tonight. Take your wife. Just bring it back tomorrow. I said, no, Elvis, that's beautiful, man. I can't do it. I didn't do it. But that's Elvis. That's the point. That's the point. At any rate, about 2 weeks later, the movie's over. And when the movie's over, Elvis, we get in his Dodge mobile home, a caravan of our cars, and we head back and drive through Route 66. And Elvis is starting to change, and everyone's starting to notice it, because now, after a couple of weeks, now his library is about this big, because I'm bringing him books. Now when he's driving the bus, he pulls over every 3 hours or so. He wants to take a break and read books, and everyone's looking at me, they're looking at him. They don't know what he's reading, they don't get it, which is understandable. I must have made 12, 14, I don't know how many trips cross country with Elvis over the years. I always sat shotgun. We are about 30 miles before Oklahoma City on Route 66. Elvis pulls the bus over. There's a empty lot, barn, and Elvis turns to me. And he says, would you mind stepping outside with me, please? But the way he said it, I didn't know what I said or what I did. I said, sure. We walk outside and we're standing toe to toe, and he had this book in the Impersonal Life in his hand. He said, okay, just tell me the truth. Who sent you here to give me this information? Who sent you here to give me these books? And I didn't even open my mouth, and a car pulls up, and these two guys, reporters from the local paper jump out. Hey, Elvis, what you doing, buddy? What you doing around here? You know, can we have a picture? And Elvis said, yeah, sure, if you take one with my buddy and me. We walked to the front of the bus. Elvis puts his arm around me, looks at me like with a grin, like Saved by the Bell. We're taking this picture. I wish I had this picture, because of the story behind it. And they take the picture, then Elvis signs an autograph, they leave, and Elvis looks at me and he says, all right, who sent you? What is this? And I looked at him. I said, you sent me, Elvis. You sent me. He smiled and he said, you're right. That's it. Let's go. Elvis's library began swelling. I brought him books from all the great spiritual masters of every wisdom tradition on planet Earth. And the people around him didn't most of them, not all of them, didn't like the fact that Elvis was reading. He was changing. He was 28 years old. I was 24. He was growing up. He had an inquisitive mind, like I told you. About 6, 7 months after I'm working with Elvis, Elvis had no conception of time. He was on what we used to call Elvis time. He would wait to the very last minute if he had to do something. And he did not like going, he loved making movies. He loved them. But leaving Graceland sometimes was a difficult task. So we waited to the last minute, which meant for the first time ever, we had to drive straight through to his home, back here to make a movie. So we knew we couldn't stop. So when we got to the panhandle of Texas, Amarillo, Elvis pulled into a motel, and someone said, Elvis, we can't stop. He said, no, 30 minutes. I just need to freshen up. You guys get a room, get me a room by myself. We go up into our room. 30 seconds later, the phone rings. Someone said, all right, Larry, he wants you. You can't start talking to Elvis again. We got to go. That's why Elvis pulled over, because there was something on his mind. I go into the room, and Elvis is walking back and forth. He says, all right, you got to tell me, man. You got to tell me. I've always believed in God. I'm a believer. I've read all the books, and I read all about these mystics that have all these extraordinary experiences and how people are touched with this divine energy, and it's never happened to me. I believe, but it hasn't happened. Why? So I said, Elvis, it doesn't matter if you're Elvis Presley or Larry Geller or anyone else. We got to let go of our egos. We got to let go and surrender to God. Ask God about it. Tell God what you want. I get it, he said. Okay, I get it. Let's go. We got to get to California. Here it comes. We get into the Dodge Mobile Home. We drive through New Mexico, Arizona, and we were facing the sacred Hopi mountain called the San Francisco Peaks. And Flagstaff and the Grand Canyon is up there. And we're driving, and all of a sudden, Elvis says, whoa, look, do you see what I see? Jerry Schilling and Red West and Billy Smith were behind us in the cab. And I looked, I said, yes, I do. And I saw it, and you would see it. A definitive face of Joseph Stalin with the eyebrows and that mustache and that hair. I couldn't believe we saw the same thing. Wow, but as I'm looking, it started to diffuse into a cloud again. And all of a sudden I turned to Elvis and he goes, oh, and his jaw dropped and he pulls the bus over the side of the road. He said, Lawrence, follow me. And these guys in the back, they look, and Elvis runs about 10 yards into the desert. And I follow him and he turns around and screaming tears, grabs me. You're right, I love you, man, I love you, you're right. You gotta let go. It's not the ego, it's not the... I said, Elvis, what happened? He said, you saw that face. I saw that face of Joseph Stalin, and he was worse than Hitler. This guy was like the Antichrist. He killed more people than Hitler. I thought maybe I was getting a message. Maybe God was telling me something about myself, and I said, God, tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. All I want to do is to do your will. Please, I surrender to you. And all of a sudden, that face went into full-blown light, and a lightning bolt pierced my heart and went into every atom and cell in my body. And I was filled with such love. God is love. God is love. He said, I'm going to tell you something. Now I don't have to believe in God anymore. Now I know. Now I know God is He's in you, He's in me, He's in and His love, that's what it's all about. At that moment, Red West stuck his head out. He said, hey boss, are you all right out there? Elvis said, I've never been better, I'll be right there. And we both needed shaves, and we were just, cars are whizzing by in the highway. And Elvis says, can you imagine if the fans saw me like this? I said, Elvis, they'd love you all the more, believe me. Get back in the bus, and Elvis was so taken back by this experience, couldn't drive for the first time. He said, Red, you take the wheel. And Elvis and I went to the bedroom in the back, and we sat down. And for the next couple hours, we just talked and talked about what happened. And we both fell asleep. The next thing we knew, we heard screaming. We're on fire, we're on fire. Red pulled the bus over, and thankfully we were about 2 miles, mile and a half, right before Needles, California. Fortunately, we all jump out of the vehicle, and under the carriage in the back, under the axles, flames are coming. We all got our hands in the gravel and we extinguished the fire. And there we are, Elvis Presley in the middle of the desert. And our caravan, for the very first time ever, we got lost. And I was so glad because it's just us in this experience. We all got suitcases that we're in. And Elvis said, I'll have someone come get the buses. Just get me into a room. He takes out his wallet and gives it to me. He said, Larry, you're in charge. Get a room for all of us, and then go rent a car, and let's just get back. We got to get back now. So we're in a room. I called the local cab company. 10 minutes later, 2 cabs. I go downstairs, and I said, look, we have a very important passenger, so you need to be calm and get us to Los Angeles. We're going to put all our luggage in one vehicle. We'll drive with you in this vehicle. And all of a sudden, Elvis is walking down with the other 3 guys. And they both look up. I can't imagine what, their headspace, what's going on. I said, yes, it's Elvis Presley. You're going to take him home. We get in the car, in the vehicle. Elvis is in the back, right by the window. And he rolls the window down, and he's still in this experience. And he puts his head out the window, and he breathes in, he goes, whoa, like that. But the driver is freaking out. His pedal was 90 miles an hour now. I said, hey man, slow down, slow down. You want to kill us? Keep your eyes on the road, because he's looking at Elvis. This is quite a moment, right? drive up to the house, and all the other guys are there. We get out, and I said, listen, guys, we got to be at the studio. Go home, get some sleep. Larry, come with me. We got to talk. We go into the den. Elvis's den had louvered doors for privacy, but not really, because if someone's on the other side, you can hear what's going on. Elvis closes the doors. He says, sit down. I sit down, and he's standing above me. He said, that's it. That's it, man. I quit. I quit show business. I went out. How in the hell can I go back and make these teeny bopper movies that don't mean a thing? It's the same flick. It's the same movie. All they do is change my name. I just can't do this anymore. I was touched by God. You got me into this, and I'm not going to make a move until you tell me what to do. And I heard the voices on the other side of the door. I'm thinking, oh my God. And I look, and he said, don't worry about them. Let him tell Colonel Parker, his manager. Let him tell him. I want him to. Everyone's got to know. Find me a monastery. Maybe I'll join a monastery. I said, wait a minute, Elvis. And you can imagine what was going on within me. Elvis, you are the biggest star in the world. You have more fans than anyone else. They love you. They listen to you and they'll follow you. And now you can make the movies that you always talk about being an actor in real. Now you can do things with your life that we've been talking about. And you get some rest. You said you do what I say? Get rest. Go to sleep. I give you my word of honor. You wake up and you have new eyes to see. I promise you, you'll be recharged. And this experience that you had is so valid, but it's going to take a long time to roll out, to really understand the ramifications. Then all of a sudden, Elvis grinned. He said, you're right, you're right. Tell you the truth, I can't see myself raking leaves in the garden and having Priscilla next to me raking leaves, you know. Okay. We finished the movie, just about finished the movie that we were on at MGM. And Elvis said to me, the Colonel wants to see me. Something's up. There's a meeting. Let's go to MGM. So we drove to MGM. A couple cars follow us. We drive into MGM lot and drive up to Elvis Exploitations. That's the name of the Colonel's office. You walk into his office, and honestly, you can't see ceiling or wall or anything. Everything is Elvis, 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 Elvis. Posters everywhere. Movie posters, show from the great office. Elvis said, you all wait here. Talk to the Colonel, I'll be right out. Waited about 15, 20 minutes, and Elvis comes out. And when he came out of that meeting, and I saw him, I thought I saw smoke coming out of his nostrils. I knew, and that look on his face when he got angry, he got back in the car and he started swearing. He said, that son of a bitch. He said, man, first thing he says to me, so I hear Larry's bringing your books you're reading. What are you on, some kind of a religious kick? A kick, he said? My life is not a kick, it's my life. This is what I'm about. And he got into it and he didn't stop for a couple hours. He said, that man is better take care of business, but that's it. There's a line. He's the business end. I'm the artistic end. I'm the performer. He's the manager. He better not get into my life. Man, and he went on. For days, Elvis spoke about this. A year later, Elvis brought it up. He had a love-hate relationship. Simple as that. I don't think I have to tell you, because Elvis's generosity It's legendary, legendary. He gave away to all of us, to strangers. If you came over to this house, or Graceland, I promise you, you would not leave unless I would give you a bracelet or give you a car. He said, I know better than most people what it means when the Bible says it's more blessed to give than receive. Because when I see someone's face, when I give them something, and he gave cars and jewelry and mobile homes and horses to us and trucks, hair transplants to someone, a kidney. If you needed a body part, Elvis used to go-to guy, okay? I mean, whatever you want. He could not say no. One afternoon up in Bel Air, doing Elvis's hair, Elvis, the truck's here. Elvis grins, he says, hey, got a surprise, let's go. We walked to the car compound. There was a big truck. And they're unloading 12 big hogs, Harley-Davidsons, motorcycles. 6 blue, 6 red. And there was these fans galore outside. Elvis said to us, everyone pick out the one you want. Blue or red, whatever you want. So we all picked our bike out. There was this young boy, about 16 years old, and he was standing at the gate like that. And Elvis motions me to follow him, and we walk up to this boy. And Elvis says to him, "Those nice bikes, huh?" The kid said, "Yeah." Couldn't look at Elvis. Couldn't look at him. Elvis said, "Do you have a bike?" No. "You want one?" "No, I don't know." "Well, you got one. Go pick out a bike." Kid didn't move. Elvis goes like this, come on. And he pulls this guy in, and the guy got a bike? Elvis Presley. His generosity was unbounded. He gave things away and helped people. He would say, don't tell anyone. Give money to a hospital. Don't let anyone know it's from me. It was December of 1965. We're upstairs, and Elvis's bedroom was here, then his office, and then the room where I did his hair with a nice chair, and I could shampoo, bowls. It was great. We spent hours and years in that room. So, it was right before Christmas, and I'm telling Elvis about this fantastic book, and it's all about the Christian church and how it really started, and how they decided about the books that should make up the Bible and what books they didn't put in. And I said, oh, you got to read this book. And it's written by this person that has done research, very mystical. I was like, oh yeah, man, I want that book. Get it tomorrow. They don't have this book in Memphis. I'll give you my copy. I'll buy you when we get back. He said, no, I want it tomorrow. What time is it? I said, about 8 o'clock at night. He said, well, you can catch the red eye. Next thing I know, I'm in Los Angeles. And I figured, hey, look, I'm here. It's Christmas. I bought him a stack. Next night, it's 8 o'clock. I'm back in the room. I showed Elvis the book. He looks at I'm doing his hair. But there was one book that caught his eye. It was a coffee table type book about the earliest years of Hollywood, how it all began, the very first movie stars, and on the left of every page was a picture of the person, of the star, and on the right, bio, maybe a smaller picture. Elvis opens it up to the very first page, and he says, oh my God, I don't believe this. The very first movie star. This is where the term came from. America's sweetheart, Mary Pickford. But wait a minute, he said, that's not her real name. They made her name up. Look what her real name is. Gladys Smith. That's my mom's name. The very first movie star has my mom's name. Wow. Coincidence? I don't think so, Larry. This is something. This gets better. I'm finishing up his hair. Douglas Fairbanks and Buster Keaton and all the greats. And all of a sudden, Elvis says, "Whoa, there he is, man. Look at that. Look, Larry, look at that picture. That's the man. The greatest sex symbol of them all. Rudolph Valentino, the Sheik. Look at his eyes. You can tell he knew that he had that power. Look at him. Look at him. Women went nuts when I saw him. They loved him. He had an effect on women. And he died so young. And women flung themselves on his casket." I said, in my naivete, which is cool, I said, "But Elvis, that's who you are today, in our time." He turns around and said, "What the hell are you talking about?" He didn't accept it. He didn't get it. Because he was, and he was. He knew he was Elvis Presley. He knew he was a movie star. But he had a humbleness about him. And Elvis would never say, "Hey, it's me, me." He couldn't do that. He couldn't accept that. He could. That was his beauty, though. That was his beauty. He says to me, "You know, people say so many things about me. People call me the king of rock and roll. Like I invented rock and roll or something." No, he said, "No. That's not how. Let me tell you how it really happened." He went on to tell me, he said, it happened way, way back in the old days, in the deep South, in the Mississippi Delta, with black people. That's how it all started. People who knew what suffering was. People who knew what poverty, real suffering. These people picked cotton and worked their butts off, their asses off, when the sun came up until the sun went down, they were out there sweating. And you know how they got through it? They sang to God from their pain, and they made up their songs as they went along. Some of those songs remain with us today. That's how these songs were created in the first place. And they went into their churches, and white people picked up on it. They started singing some of their songs. And then it started to really spread. Went to honky tonk down in New Orleans, and then eventually up to Chicago, St. Louis and Chicago, into the blues. And in our time, it all developed in rhythm and blues. I was just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and introduce their music to a white audience. That's how it all began. He said, "Man, I remember I was only 3 years old, and I knew I wanted to be a singer. I knew then. I was on my mama's lap in church, and all I wanted to do is run down the aisle and sing with the choir. Hey, man, I came on the scene. They called my music dirty. Dirty? They said I was dirty, the way I sang, the way I moved my body. Hey, I learned it in church. When I get up there to sing, all I'm doing is being myself and what I feel. And if I think, it turns off." He said, "Don't think, just be." That's Elvis Presley. You know, we're here because of Elvis. But the actual center of the Elvis world is Graceland. And the center of Graceland is a meditation garden where Elvis is buried. And I'll bet you most people think that the meditation garden came with Graceland. You know, originally when Elvis bought it, there was no. Here's how it happened. I introduced Elvis to a lot of things, and one of them was to the teachings of Self-Realization Fellowship, Paramahansa Yogananda. And they have centers all over the world, and I used to bring Elvis up late at night to meet the head of the whole place. Her name was Sri Dayamata, and Elvis loved her. He called her Ma. She was a mother figure to him. He brought Priscilla there, and Priscilla and Ma became one. Sri Dayamata passed away about a year and a half ago. Remarkable lady, and she and Elvis were very close over the years. And they had a center on Sunset Boulevard when you approach the Pacific Ocean. It's called the Lake Shrine, and there's a wonderful meditation garden, and it's 10 acres with a gorgeous lake. And Elvis fans from all over the world go there now. The bus tours and the Hollywood star tours, when they pass by, they say, the Elvis used to go here. Elvis said to me, this place is special. You can feel it. You can see it in the people here. No one's bothering me. They're respectful. It's because it's very spiritual here. This is what I want. I want a meditation garden. We created the meditation garden. There's a fellow that used to work for Elvis, Marty Lacker, and he helped. And so we built. Elvis did a lot of the designing himself. Never, ever, ever imagining what would exist today. As the 70s started to roll on, we all started changing with the times. The world was changing, society was changing. I started to get very interested in literature and writing. And around 1972, I founded and created a magazine called The New Age Voice. In fact, wait a minute, it's here. That's right. Lovely cover. In 1972, it reflected, the information reflected that era. And so I brought to Elvis as I finally finished it. And he looked at it, he said, give me 100 copies. Gave them to everyone. And then he said to me, I got to ask you something. I said, what? He said, I need your permission. I'm starting a new backup group, and I want to call them The Voice, after your magazine. And that's how The Voice, that was his group. That's where it came from. Elvis started to change a lot. He started to really mature in a lot of ways intellectually. And he started to think about things that he could do with his career, with his life. He was touring now. The movie days were over. And now, touring the country back and forth and back and forth. And he was coming up with ideas that he could start to expand his expression. And we started to talk about making movies. Elvis wanted to start a charity. So one night, we're in his house in the Holmby Hills, 144 Montvale, and we're talking about starting a charity. I said, you know, Danny Thomas is a friend of mine. Danny Thomas started Jude's Hospital. Whenever he needs anything, he calls me. I'm there for him. And he used to live next door to me when I had the house on Hillcrest. Let's go over there right now. Danny will talk to us. He'll give us some ideas about charity. Great. We jump in Elvis's Stutt Bearcat. It's about 7-8 minutes away. Drive up. And Danny Thomas lived on a cul-de-sac on top of the hill, overlooking Los Angeles with the most incredible view. And Elvis's old house was next door. So we pulled up, Elvis and I get out of the car. We walked to the gates, and it was pretty dark. And Elvis looking in, there was a guard, a security guard. The guard says, you better get out of here. Elvis said, no, I'm here to see Mr. Thomas. Danny's a friend of mine. We tell him I'm here. No, 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 you better get out of here right now. And Elvis said, no, I used to live next door. I was his neighbor. Danny Thomas is a friend of mine. Tell him I'm here. The guy says, if you don't leave now, he starts to walk towards us. We're on the other side of the gates. I'm calling the squad car. And Elvis now is starting to get angry. And I'm thinking, oh no, this isn't good. He said, do you know who I am? I don't care who you are. Get out of here. I'm Elvis Presley, man. I want to go. And now I'm saying, this is a situation. And I don't see a very good outcome. Ay, ay, ay. And Elvis says, you tell Danny Thomas I'm here, or I'm going to have your job. Your job's on the line. And the guard said something, and Elvis looked at me and says, okay, let's go. Let's go. We got in the car. Elvis didn't say anything. I could tell he was like very upset. We drove back to his house. We go into the den, and Elvis said, oh man, I blew it. I can't believe what happened. My ego. It's my ego. Got away with me. There is no way in the world I would have anyone's job. How in the hell did I do that? He said, well, it shows you, man. He said, I got a tiger in me. And you got to learn how to control yourself. That's the lesson. I got to control myself. And I'm telling you this because obviously you can see by now, when I talk about Elvis, I talk in very glowing superlative terms because he was an extraordinary human being. But Elvis had his he was a person like us. Did you ever get mad? Did you ever lose your temper? Did you ever say something to someone that you shouldn't? Of course. But here's the point. I'm trying to undercut it with Elvis was the type of person that was always aspiring to be better, to grow, to do the right thing, never succumb to the lower self. And that's a quality that we should only all inhabit because, well, you see my point. So as time was going by, Elvis is, especially after the divorce with Priscilla, it took a toll on Elvis. It hit him very hard. He went through a lot of things. And it manifested physically. And it's true with any of us. Our bodies record what's going on with our mind, our life, our emotions. Everything's recorded in the body. Our poor bodies take the brunt of what we go through in life. And it did with Elvis. And he was plagued with a lot of problems physically that people don't know about, that over the next several years just got worse. He had glaucoma. After a show, Elvis was literally blind. First of all, he had glaucoma one time and had to have a medical procedure. And when he walked up on stage, the first thing he would see was flashbulbs over and over, and it wouldn't stop. And it blinded him. Plus the fact that he sweat, and his hair would go into the corner of his eye. So I cut his hair very short around here at times. But after a show, Elvis would have to be led by the arm on each side down off the stage. He couldn't see. Go back either to the hotel or the plane, lie down with compresses on his eyes for about 35, 45 minutes. His eyesight came back. If you went to his bedroom or his den right here, he'd have his glasses on. Elvis wore glasses. So one afternoon, we're on tour. Louisville, Kentucky, Hilton Hotel, 4:30 in the afternoon. Elvis is in his bedroom with his doctor. Now, we owned the floor. Even the people in our show, they didn't stay with us. If they weren't in another hotel, they might be a couple floors below us. We own the floor, just us. You can't get off the elevator unless you're one of us. So I'm sitting by myself, waiting for the doctor to leave the room, and there's a pounding on the door. Whoa, I jumped up and I ran to the door and I looked at the people, and there's Colonel Parker, his manager, who never came to see Elvis on tour. Very unusual. So I opened the door. Colonel, hello. Where is he? Now, where is it? Where is he? Well, Colonel, I told him, I said, he's in the bedroom with the doctor. Let me tell him you're here. He said, no, I'm going right in. He walks right past me with his cane, and I follow him to the bedroom. He opens the door, and this is what I saw. The doctor has Elvis's head, dunking Elvis's head into a bucket of ice. And Elvis was moaning, and the door closed. Just picture this. My first thought was, good. Good. Because now the man in charge is going to see the reality. Elvis needs help. He needs to go into a hospital or something, but he should not be on tour. A minute and a half later, the colonel walked out, walked up to me, and we stood toe to toe, and he looked at me right in the eyes. He said, now you listen to me. The only thing that's important now is that man in there is on the stage tonight. Do you hear me? Nothing else matters. Nothing. And he walked out. My heart sank. What about Elvis? Wait a minute. What about Elvis? What about Elvis? What's going on here? He saw what was happening. Elvis wasn't conscious. I know what I would do. I know what anyone here would do. About 2 minutes later, the doctor walked out, and I heard of, Lawrence, come in here. I walked in. He said, why in the hell did you let that son of a bitch in here? I told him what happened. He said, man, I've had it. I've had it with him. That's it. I know I've said it before over the years. He was phenomenal when we started. He was brilliant. He's a genius. He launched my career. I'm indebted to him. I always will be. But he's lost touch. He's lost touch. I got to find someone else. And we discussed certain names, and Elvis picked someone out that he wanted to manage him. He said, I'm going to get rid of the colonel. And he mentioned everybody in the group and ran down at each name, spoke about them, and Elvis was in the process of letting most of the people go. He didn't want a group around him. He was going to stop touring. He said, I know my life's on the line. We're going to go to Hawaii. And we're going to rent that house, because we were on a vacation for the first time for a few days, and he rented a house. And he loved it there. It was on Oahu. And he mentioned 3 other people that were going to go. And he said, man, I'm stopping the tours. I've had it. I've done it. If it takes a year, whatever it takes, I got to get my life back. The very, very last time Elvis ever played Las Vegas. December of 1976. Our guys, there was 7 or 8 of us, were sitting on the couch in Elvis's suite, waiting for Elvis to come out to start the process of the day. Elvis came out usually at 4 o'clock. The door opened, and Elvis came out of his bedroom. Wearing his blue robe. He had a look on his face that I knew there was something wrong right away. He plopped down on the couch, and he had beads of sweat, and he was heaving, gasping for breath almost. And he said, "You guys all leave Larry and I alone. We have to talk. I'll see you in a while." They all left. And Elvis got up and walked to where the drapes that were covered, and he lunged on the drapes. And he said, "Lawrence, quick, quick." And I ran over to him, and I put my arm around him. He said, "Quick, get me into the bedroom. Get me in the bedroom." And we staggered into the bedroom. We went to the bed, and he fell down on the bed. And he goes like this, "This is it. I'm going. I'm dying." Elvis Presley is lying there and telling me he's dying. I said, "Elvis, I'm going to get a doctor." And he grabbed my arm like this and squeezed it. "Don't let me die alone." In a split second, is he dying? I'm not going to let him die alone. Yes, he needs help, but I can't, if he's dying, this is it. I can't let him be. I jumped on the bed. And I cradled him in my arms, and he was wet. And I'm wet now. I put my hand on his heart, and it was going like a jackhammer. I mean, and he was going like this. And his eyes are rolling back. I thought, this is it. And I was freaked out. But behind my frontal being, personality, my essence was like a rock. And I just, not instinctually, but intuitively knew what to do. And I put my hand on his, as I told you, his chest. I said, "Elvis, you're going to be healed right now. You are going to be healed. Breathe deep. Breathe deep from your diaphragm, Elvis. Relax, slow down. Slow down your breathing." This went on for an eternity, 2 to 3 minutes. If it happened for 10 seconds, it's too long. Elvis opened his eyes. He looked at me. When he did, I knew he was back. I knew. I said, "Elvis, I got to go I got to tell the doctor. Got to tell him what happened." I propped him up in bed. I got a bunch of pillows behind him, and he thanked me, and "You saved my life," and all that kind of stuff, all the nice stuff. I said, "But I got to tell the doctor." He said, "Okay, tell the doctor, but no one else. And don't tell my dad. Don't tell Daddy, because his father was on tour with us. This will kill him." I said, "I will, Elvis. I will. But you're going to live, Elvis. You're okay. You help so many people." August 16th. Well, the night of the 15th, going into the 16th, I was at Graceland, and Elvis calls downstairs. We're going on tour the next day. Portland, Maine, 2 weeks. Elvis says, "I want to go to the movies. Set up the theater. I want to see that movie with Gregory Peck, MacArthur." So just Zito picked up the phone, and he didn't want Elvis to go. And Elvis said, "I have to go to the dentist now. When I come back." So Elvis went to the dentist. It's midnight. For some reason, thankfully, the projectionist had a crisis with his family and couldn't go, so we couldn't see the movie. Great. Elvis came back about an hour and a half later. When I heard the front door open, I went to see him. And he had his sunglasses on. And he took his sunglasses off, and he looked at me. That man can communicate with his eyes. And he looked at me, and he gave me a look. And he shook his head. And put his glasses on, and walked upstairs. I went in the other room in the den, and I sat down, and I thought, oh my God, why are we going on tour? This should not happen. He's not ready. Not ready. About 5 minutes later, the phone rang from his room downstairs. And someone shook me, actually. I was in such deep thought about what's going on. I was so emotional. He said, Larry, the phone. Elvis wants you. Oh, I got on the phone. And Elvis said, Lawrence, did you bring me my books, some more books? And when he said that, it was so odd. Because his voice, I never heard his voice like this before. He didn't sound like that guy that walked through the door. His voice was like pure. I thought to myself, God, he sounds like a teenager. I said, of course I did. He said, did you bring me that book of the Holy Shroud of Turin? And I said, yeah, I did. And I happen to have it here for you. And we started talking, and all of a sudden, he started laughing like a little kid. And then I started laughing. And you know, it's like when someone laughs and you have to laugh, it's infectious. And that's what happened. We were both sitting there, and it was stupid almost. And I thought to myself, Elvis is fine. Oh, I'm so glad. This is what I'm thinking as I'm laughing. Oh, he's okay. It was my imagination. Elvis says, so come on upstairs. We got a lot to talk about. I said, Elvis, we're going on tour tomorrow. We have the next couple, we'll be, every day, we'll talk. I bought some books, and we'll talk. We got a lot going on, and you need some sleep. He said, you think so? I said, yeah, and he started laughing again. We both started laughing. It was like a weird moment. And I knew it was odd, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But I liked it because of the sound of his voice, yet I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it. And then Elvis said, well, whatever's right. I said, Elvis, I'm going to go to my room. See you tomorrow. Come upstairs, take care of your hair. We'll talk. We're going. He said, okay, but remember, angels fly because they take themselves so lightly. Oh, that was beautiful, I thought. Hung up. It was the last time I ever spoke to Elvis. Went to my room. About an hour later, Elvis wanted his books. So someone came to my room, I gave him the books. As everyone knows, Elvis's body was found in a fetal position with the book clutched to his chest. He was reading about Jesus, and he split. He left. His father said to me that day, Larry, you've got to go to the funeral parlor to take care of Elvis's hair. You know how he should look. He would want you there. Went to the funeral parlor. As I drove in, I saw thousands of people outside. It was 8 in the morning. Thousands of people. kids, older people, black people, white people. And everyone had the same look on their face. Anguish. And the same look in their eyes. And I heard 3 helicopters. And every time to this day when I hear a helicopter, that moment, it's back there, it resonates. I get out of my car, I have my bag with me, with my stuff. Charlie's there with Robert Candell, 6 or 7 police officers. I walked into the room, knowing the reality. I knew. Elvis was a living masterpiece. And I looked at that face, those lips, and I remember thinking, that voice, we'll never sing again. That voice, it would tear our hearts. Fill it with joy. And I said to him, silent Elvis, we believed every word you said. Do not forget. Never forget this, Larry. Never forget this moment. This is one of the most extraordinary moments that could ever happen. This is history. This is Elvis. You're going to have to tell people. And all of a sudden, it was like I was watching a video, and all of a sudden, picture after picture after picture, just like all the memories were like cascading down. And I remember thinking, hi, Elvis, and all the times at the studio, it just happened so quick. And all of a sudden, a memory stuck of something that happened 11 years earlier. It was 1966. And every day I would go upstairs to do Elvis's hair. We'd go out that night to the Memphian Theater and whatever. And I knocked on his door in his bedroom. And I opened the door. Elvis said, come on in. I opened the door, and there's Elvis. When you know someone's body language, you know immediately. And I thought, uh-oh. I said, what's wrong? He looked at me. He said, what's wrong? I'll tell you what's wrong. And he hands me a magazine. Because in those days, it wasn't the National Enquirer and the Star or the Globe or that type of thing. It was the movie magazines. Elvis said, go on, read the headline. And of course, his picture was on the cover. And it said, Elvis in deep grief over his mother's death. He said, hey man, my mom died 8 years ago. You never get over your mother, your father, anyone you love. It's always there. You never get over it. But I came to terms with it. It was 8 years ago. Read further. So I started to read, and it said something like this. Elvis's friends and family are very worried about Elvis because they hear him pacing back and forth, crying in the wee hours of the morning. And one insider, this little trick they use, insider, right, said they were afraid Elvis might want to join his mother. Elvis, do you believe that, man? Look at the tricks they, I mean, these people, how can they do a thing like that? Grieve? I hope you never have to grieve like that, Larry, ever. And that's what I thought when I'm standing about Elvis's body. And it fits so perfectly. And I said to him silently, not in front of all these strangers in the room, Elvis, had it all. You had everything. And you suffered for it. You suffered for it. You suffered for your genius. You suffered for what you really wanted to do. And for all the gifts. Then I noticed he had a regrowth of white hair, gray hair everywhere. I didn't bring my dyes. I brought my hair blower and my scissors and the spray. I know I was going to have to spray the hell out of it. What am I going to do? We can't bring him to Graceland. There was a lady there. I said, "Do you have your mascara?" She said, I mean, never forget her, a small little girl. "Yes, I do." I said, "What color?" She said, "Black." Oh, God, thank you. In those days, it wasn't the wand like today. I spit in it, smeared it, blended it in. And it took me about 45 minutes. His hair would not go. His life force left the body. This was the physical remains of Elvis Presley. And he had a look on his face that stunned me. And I kept thinking, what is... His soul left, but there was a peace. There was a certain kind of... that put me at peace in a certain way, even though I was freaked out. So I did his hair, sprayed it and sprayed it and sprayed it. Brought his body to Graceland at noon. And everyone finally got to see Elvis, and the family and the friends and the guys who worked for... This was it. The funeral was going to be the next day. And all the fans were going to be allowed, because we brought the body to the opening of Graceland later, but the family and friends got Lisa Marie, 9 years old, came up to see her daddy. And I couldn't leave Elvis. I couldn't leave the end of the casket. I just stood there all day. Charlie was there too. Lisa walks up. I was looking at her face, and she put her hands on it. She felt them. She put her hands here. And then she started to run her fingers through his hair, and I thought, oh God. Oh no. She's going to ruin his hair. No. I can't say anything. I wouldn't, So then she left. And I went over. And I noticed something. It was like he was bathed in a bliss that I can't describe, but I saw it. So the next afternoon was August the 18th. It was the funeral at Graceland. The funeral was over, and we, meaning Vernon and Jerry and Joe and George Klein and Sam Thompson and Dick Robe, Alan Fortas, Billy Smith, and the guys were at the casket. Robert Candell from the funeral parlor was there. Joe Esposito took Elvis's TCB ring off, handed it to Mr. Presley, who was standing right here. I was standing here. And I remember Mr. Presley yelled out, "Son, this is it, the final curtain." And Robert Candela said, "Well, I have to close the casket, we've got to go." I was going to be buried. And I made a decision. And I knew I had to do what I had to do. I remember one night, before Elvis went on the stage, when he was going through stuff, I couldn't believe he was walking on that stage. I walked him to this, and I said to him right before he walked on, I said, "Elvis, tell me, how do you do it?" And he looked at me. He said, "A man does what he has to do, what he's born to do, no matter what. Cream rises to the top." I love that. The casket's coming. the lid's coming down, and I made a conscious decision. I wanted to be the last person to ever touch Elvis Presley. So I put my hand in, quickly, on his forehead. And I said something silently. I wanted to, I had to. That's the way it is. That's the way it is, and here we are. 35 years later, and it's like Elvis never left us. And in a sense, he didn't. He still remains in a very unique way. His image, his music, and the force of his personality is here. People have asked me over the years, what would Elvis think? You know, most visited home in America is Graceland. 600,000 people, 700,000, from all over the world. They come, they walk up to the meditation garden, to where he's buried. They want that contact, they want that feeling, they want that touch, some are curious, some are just enthralled. What about the candlelight vigil? The candlelight vigil. Year after year after year. It goes on for 12, 14 hours. No other entertainer, politician, or religious leader in this country, or anywhere in the world, has a candlelight vigil every year. Elvis climbed Mount Everest, and he planted his flag. It's the only flag up there. He did it alone. He did it. You know, it's amazing when you think about it. You take all the great luminaries, and I'm a fan of every person I'm going to mention. Rudolph Valentino, Clark Gable, the King of Hollywood, John Wayne, Marilyn Monroe, James Dean, Frank Sinatra, and throw a few more in. And they're all right here. More people go to visit Elvis Presley each year than the rest combined. It would blow his mind. That's what I'm telling you. It would blow his mind. He would love it. But not in an egotistical way. That's not who he was. I mean, he was shy. He was shy. He knew he was Elvis Presley, of course. I brought him books on every major and some you never heard of, leaders in the realm of religion and spirituality, the world's great wisdom traditions. And Elvis read their stories. He wanted to know how they reacted to people, what they did with their lives to help people. The beacons of light. That's what he wanted to know. That's what he wanted to know. And here's the irony. Here's the irony in the secret, so to speak. The way the world has reacted, the outpouring of love, is what Elvis really wanted. This is what he yearned for. All life, as far as I'm concerned, all life, every one of us, comes from the divine, from love. From love. That's what Elvis Presley was all about. that first afternoon when I did his hair, he said to me, he was so proud when he said it. He said, you know, my mom's middle name is Love. That was her name, Gladys Love Presley. And that's all Elvis wanted to do, and that's what he did. That's what he did. That's his legacy. And that's why we're here today. And it's no coincidence that we're here. It's no coincidence that everything that happened since Elvis left just kind of happened because he was this great singer. No. Something else is happening. This goes way beyond the entertainment world. If we knew, if any of us knew, some of the lives that have been transformed and changed because of Elvis Presley, oh my God, it would blow our minds. I know so many times when I'm going through something, or I have a problem, or it's emotional, or whatever, and I listen to Jim Sykes on Sirius Radio every day. All you have to do is listen to Elvis' music. And something happens. He communicated and penetrated to the very heart and core of humanity. He has healed us. Elvis is a healer. He's a channel of love. Thank you for being here and listening.